Thank you so much for coming. My name is Christine. I'm actually the president of the Paralegal Student Association here on campus. And I want to give you just a very big thank you for coming. And I'm sorry about the air conditioning situation, but the university has been having some kind of wide campus problems. So please make sure to keep yourself hydrated. We have water, and there's a lot of food here. So again, my name is Christine, and I'm the president of the Paralegal Student Association here on campus. And pretty much we are here to serve our student body, to give them all the tools that they need in order to succeed through the program. And so one of the things that we do every semester is that we do a professional development event somewhat related to career. So that way we give our students kind of a heads up, a big open scene into what it's like to be a paralegal from the time that they get here to the time that they leave. So our event theme this semester is job search strategies. And so we have a great panel with us. We have Jeff, who is our expert on recruiting services, especially in the legal atmosphere. We have Erica, who's going to be talking about networking and what you can do to improve your strategies in that situation and to use your local paralegal association. And then we also have Derek, who is the head of career services for the College of Professional Studies, and he will give you an eye-opening into using your college or alumni association as a way to look for a job. So now I'm going to present Melissa, who will be giving you an intro into the program.
Okay, so can I see a show of hands for how many people are not currently students in our paralegal studies program? Lots of people. Wow. So welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I do not want to sit and give an info session because nobody wants to sit through that right now, and it's warm. But I am going to stay until the program that we have is over, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about our paralegal studies program. Just so that you know who you're talking to. I hate to say it this way, I'm a recovering attorney. I was an attorney, and I took some time off to be home with kids, and yeah, just like, oh, I know that term, and decided not to go back into practice, but to go to higher ed instead. And so I've been teaching in the paralegal studies program here since 2007, and I've had a hand in lots of different courses, including the capstone at the end of the master's program, including the initial program, which all of our students take, whether they're master's or certificate students, and a little bit of everything else. And until January, I was the career services director for CPS, and so I was working with paralegal students and alums on career, and pass the torch over to Derek Haseltine, who will be talking with me tonight. So anyway, I'm going to sit over by the food, my favorite spot, and after the program is over, if you have any questions about the Paralegal Studies program, chances are I can answer them, and if not, I can absolutely give you the answer, and I'll take your name and your email, and I'll send that over to you. Okay? So enjoy.
Great. So just a few words before we launch into our portion here. So in terms of the format, each of us has prepared a few comments, probably 10 or so minutes of points that we want to hit on, and then we really want to turn things over to you guys for questions. And I've really scaled back my portion because I saw all those hands go up that weren't current students or alumni of the program. But I'll talk a little bit about how you can work with your career service at your alumni institution. So without further ado, we're going to start on this end, and we'll move back towards me. So we'll start off with Erica, who's going to give us an introduction to NCAPA, who they are, what they do, how to get involved, and really why it's a good idea to get involved with a professional society and how it enhances your career. So we'll start with Erica, and then we'll hit Jeff, and we'll finish with me, and then we'll turn it over to you guys.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. It's really nice to see a lot of familiar faces, but it's even nicer sometimes to see the faces that I don't know yet, because that means I get to meet you. I didn't used to be this outgoing. I used to be kind of a wallflower, and then I discovered my paralegal association, believe it or not. It sounds very corny, but it's very true. And tonight I'm speaking to all of you. So NCAPA stands for National Capital Area Paralegal Association. We are, of course, the Paralegal Association of the National Capital Area. A lot of people think that this means we're a national association. we're not. It's just the nation's capital. I don't know why that's confusing sometimes, but it is. But it is a paralegal association for everybody in the DC metro area. We have all kinds of memberships, student memberships, which would apply to probably most people in this room, are offered at a very steep discount. We have voting memberships for working paralegals. We have contributing memberships for people who just want to support the profession, associate memberships for people who used to be in part of the profession, and so on and so forth. So it really involves a lot of different people. It's not just paralegals that make up the association. Some of the neat things about NCAPA is that it was founded back in 1974, and because of that, we actually were charter members of some of the really neat paralegal alliances or networks. So the Virginia Alliance of Paralegal Associations contains a lot of different member associations in the state of Virginia, and we're one of the charter founding members. We're also one of the founding members of the National Federation of Paralegal Associations. And I'm trying not to do all the acronyms because they really get confusing after a while, but it's VAPA and NIFPA is how they're pronounced. And the National Federation of Paralegal Associations is one of the 2 or 3 nationwide sort of groupings of different local area and regional associations. They sort of represent us to everything from the government to in amicus briefs, you know, for different paralegal topics, to lobbying, to education. I mean, it just kind of covers the entire globe of what it is to be a paralegal. But your local association is NCAPA, and we'd like you to get involved. There's a lot of reasons that you should be involved, and the best reason is really because it's kind of fun. We do a lot of interesting things. We offer a lot of events, social, educational, and just plain networking, and because of that, you sort of get an exposure to a lot of different people because, you know, some people are more social, some people are more into the education part, so you get to see everybody at one point or another. Let's see. I think most of you probably have the brochure I handed out. As far as the resources that NCAPA can provide, they're mostly in there. There's a lot of benefits to being a member, not the least of which is discounted CLEs. Not everyone needs CLEs, I understand that, but if you're not learning, you're stagnating. If you're not continuing to understand the legal profession, the world around you, what it is to be a professional paralegal, and what it is to know your craft, you're not doing your job, because it is a real career. It's not just a 9-to-5, come in, go home, that's it. And if you really want to, you know, commit yourself to being a paralegal, I would highly recommend you attend continuing legal education courses. Let's see. Both NIFPA and NCAPA, that's the National Association and your local association, have publications that we put out. I think theirs is bi-monthly and ours is quarterly. And they're both pretty decent publications. They have a lot of interesting articles, just good information, different opportunities. We have a job bank that is exclusive to our members. And the kind of neat thing about our job bank is, even though this has been a contentious issue for many years, we don't allow recruiters on our job bank. And we don't do that only because we've had a lot of recruiters posting ghost ads just to get their resumes, you know, their resume pool built up. We want to make sure that every job being posted there is an actual job that one of our members could get. And sometimes people post with us exclusively before they post, you know, on Monster or Career Builder, because they know, hey, it's DC, I want a paralegal. Gee, I'm going to go to the professional association. It just makes sense, right? Especially because, you know, the people in the professional association usually care about, you know, what they do. So it makes a big difference. It's not just, you know, somebody who wants a paycheck. It's somebody who wants to better themselves, better a firm or a company, make a commitment to a profession. So Let's see. And the other thing we have is community. I've met a lot of people in this room through my association with NCAPA. I don't always remember everybody's names, but I do enjoy getting to meet everybody. And I had been a paralegal for many years before I joined NCAPA, before I even knew about NCAPA. And I sort of always felt like I was in my own little world. You know, I went to work and I did my job and I got frustrated and I vented to my mom or whatever. And, you know, and then I'd go home and do my thing and go to bed, whatever. But these days, it's more about, okay, I go to work, I do my job, and I'm looking forward to the event after work where I get to go and commune with people who are in my same situation, who understand what I'm going through, who can give me pointers on different ways I might handle things, who can just, you know, be friends, be shoulders to lean on, and also be good networking contacts. So there's always that. Let's see, how to get involved. I've got different points here that Christine and I tried to hit on. There's a lot of different ways to get involved. First of all, it's just attending events. You know, a lot of people aren't really sure that they want to take time out after their, you know, long day at work to go do something else. Let me tell you, it's re-energizing. Believe it or not, you're tired, you just want to go home, you want to get your PJs on, you want to veg in front of the TV. Trust me, you will be happy that you came. Let's see. You can volunteer on committees, and NCAPA has various committees that are pretty active. Everything from CLEs to different event planning to you know, working with students in the area, all kinds of different things. So wherever your interests lie, there's something there for you. You can actually serve as a school liaison. We have positions for students who basically are there to disseminate information about NCAPA and about our events to the student body, many of whom, you know, usually aren't NCAPA members because they just don't know about us yet. Because I'm sure that if you knew about us, you'd be. And I think, you know, the PSA has really helped with that. It's definitely served to be a conduit for information and also for collaboration, which has been really cool. We've done a couple of events together, and it's been really, really cool. Nice to be able to meet students and, you know, people just coming into the profession and pair them up with people who can serve as mentors, which is just, you know, the best of both worlds for everybody. Let's see. We have a LinkedIn group, of course, where I believe the board has just recently voted to start a Facebook group, so I'm not sure who's going to be monitoring that. But I will let you all into the LinkedIn group, I promise. It's not that exclusive. And you can participate in that LinkedIn group. You can start discussions. You can respond to discussions. There are listservs through NFPA. If you're an NCAPA member, you will get a sign-in to the National Federation's website. And there are a bunch of different listservs for all different kinds of paralegal specialties, different types of paralegals, like as in you know, new paralegals, experienced paralegals, just all different kinds of things. And there's so much good information that is disseminated on those listservs. It's amazing. In fact, it's usually so useful that NFPA often publishes excerpts from those listservs in their publication because so many people have said, I'm missing out on all this. Let's see. And another way that I'd like to ask you to participate, and a lot of people are going to balk at this, but I would encourage you to write an article. You might think, oh, I don't know anything. I'm not a writer. Forget all of that. What's most important is just communicating to your community. And On Point gives you an opportunity to do that. On Point is NCAPA's publication, and like I said, it comes out quarterly, and anybody can write for it. As long as it's of interest to the legal field, we're interested. And trust me, we edit so you look beautiful. And pictures we touch up. So if you come to events, we do that too. I promise I do it. Let's see. One of the best parts about NCAPA, like I've tried to stress, is the networking, is meeting people, is getting into the community and becoming a part of the legal field in DC especially. We were just discussing before this evening started, what a small community it can be, that you never want to burn bridges and you never know who knows who. I often will tell students and new paralegals coming up that it's not what you know, it can be who you know. Sometimes who you know gets you the interview. You get you the job, but they can get you an interview. They can at least get your foot in the door, and that can be very helpful. And don't just network with other paralegals. Make sure that you talk to legal service providers. A lot of people are concerned that they're, treating you like prey. They're not. Anybody worth their salt is not. They can be great sources of education. You can learn so much by doing free demos of their products, by talking to them about what they know about the legal field. I know so many different legal service providers who've actually ended up hooking people up with jobs because they knew about an opening before it was advertised. It's just amazing. It's like you'd think, the paralegal managers will, handpick their candidates from NCAPA. Well, the legal service providers often come in and say, these two firms over here are hiring, or this great company over here is looking for somebody, and would you be interested? Here's my card. So you don't have to treat them as adversaries. Let's see. Obviously, social media outlet connections. And this is not just NCAPA's LinkedIn group and the NFPA listservs, but I would encourage you to look into other things. There's a site called the Paralegal Society. It's great. There's the Paralegal Mentor blog. There's a lot of really good blogs out there. Lit Support Guru is another one if you're interested in litigation support in that world. And if any of you are interested in any of these, I can give you web addresses, as long as my arm afterwards. But I would encourage you to not only read, but to make comments, to participate in the discussion. A lot of people will talk to you about branding. It is important. And guess what? Every comment you make on LinkedIn, everything that's public on Facebook, every comment that you make on these blogs is searchable, findable. I do it all the time. Whenever I'm evaluating candidates, one of the first things I do, because I'm not part of management, I get to Google. And I want to know who this person is. I want to know, do they care about their profession? Are they interested? Are they part of the community? Are they part of the conversation? And if they are, then I want to get to know them. And I want them in for an interview. Let's see. Another thing with networking is make sure that you're not just asking for help all the time. Make sure that you're listening to the advice that's given, and if you don't follow it, have a good reason why the next time you talk to the person, because they're probably going to ask you, oh, did you follow up on this? Did you get a chance to do that? We talked about this. Were you able to update your resume before, so that we can look at it together? And if you haven't, I'll admit they're going to be a little disappointed. I've worked with a lot of people over the years, and it's so encouraging to see somebody who really wants to better themselves and wants to grow and learn. And if you're not doing that, it's not exciting to work with you, if that makes sense. Always have your elevator pitch ready. People say this, it's so true. If you can't tell me in a minute who you are, what kind of job you're looking for, and what your background is, just a summary, then it's going to be a long night with a lot of different people. So if you can sort of get in there, make yourself memorable, that's really going to help you. Let's see. Informational interviews are a wonderful thing. Your teachers will tell you about this. Your friends will tell you about this. They are so, so helpful. And most people are very concerned. They don't want to bother busy people. Trust me, they want to be bothered. They want to be bothered to help people, because who wouldn't be, thrilled for somebody to call you up? If somebody called you and said, I'm really interested in what you know. Could you share it with me? What are you going to say? No, of course not. But along with those go good manners. Always send your thank you notes. Always make sure to say please, thank you, be appreciative. Because like we said earlier, you never know who knows who. Let's see. And this is something that a lot of people aren't too sure about. I still don't do it myself, which I really should. I was taught a long time ago to create a networking spreadsheet for yourself. Use Excel, use whatever program you want, and keep track of what events you went to, on what dates, who you met. Maybe include some sort of little description of what they looked like, what you talked about, who they work for, all of that, and then follow up with them. Get their card, give them a call. Write that down. Make sure that you remember all of this so that you know who everyone is and where you met them and maybe who they know. And before you know it, you're going to have this incredibly huge spreadsheet of this great community that you've built relationships with. Not just people you know, but people who know you. And I think that's such an awesome idea. I do it in pieces. I usually take cards and I write on the back of that card, where I met the person, what they looked like so I don't forget that, and what we spoke about so that, I have a frame of reference. And to, with all of the tools that we have today, all the technology, who can't carry around an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, or a Google Doc and just fill it in. So my last point would just be to find yourselves mentor or mentors. People who will take the time out to talk to you about what the legal field is. I mean, your parents are great, your friends are great, but only somebody who really works in the industry is going to know, where to steer you. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. Quick question before I start talking. Show of hands, how many people are working paralegals right now? About half? Third to half? Okay. Like Melissa, my name is Jeff. Like Melissa, I'm also a recovering attorney. I practiced law here in D.C. for about 10 years. I'm a former litigator. I was with a large firm in D.C. and a mid-sized firm, and then I saw the light. Frankly, I got burned out and started to have kids, so I didn't want to travel as much or be in court as much as I was. I've been in legal recruiting for about 15 years now. I've been with large agencies, I've been with small agencies, regional agencies. About 4.5 years ago, I started my own company. Things that we saw, in fact, Erica mentioned some of them, the things that we saw at some of the other agencies, my business partner and I didn't like. Things like putting up ghost ads. Erica's right. There are some agencies in DC that do that, and there are a lot of other agencies that feel it's wrong, as do we. So
exactly, and work with the people who feel that it's wrong.
Yeah. The best way to find a job or find a new job is networking. 80% of all jobs are found through networking. And Erica gave a good overview of some of the ways to network, whether it's joining NCAPA or other associations. Going to DC bar meetings. DC bar meetings, who's going to be there? Well, attorneys. Attorneys need paralegals. So that may be a good way to get to meet people. Going to events, and you really do need to get out and meet people. And it's not necessarily asking if they have a job that's open, but who do they know who might have a job that's open. Bringing your resume to some of these events, that's not necessarily a bad thing to do. Don't be ashamed of that, especially in this economy. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Another way is working with agencies. There are a lot of agencies in DC. There are some large agencies, small agencies. There are going to be some agencies that will say that you, as the employee, have to pay a fee. Walk away. There is no reason you should pay a dime to an agency. Agencies, the good agencies, make their money or charge the employer. They make the money from the employer. So there are agencies in DC, I've seen them, that will say the employee has to pay X dollars for resume writing or review, or you'll have to pay for them to help you find a job. That's crazy. There are some agencies that will tell you that they have all the jobs in DC, so there's no need to, or you cannot sign up with another agency. Again, walk away. They're lying. It's as simple as that. I've been with the large agencies, and even with a couple of the large agencies, we don't get all the jobs in DC. With a smaller agency now, we have 10 recruiters now. Actually, I've got more recruiters now than I did when I was with a large agency. Still haven't figured that one out, but in any case, we don't get all the jobs there are in DC. We routinely encourage candidates to sign up with several agencies just for that reason. It doesn't make sense. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. It's all about relationships. Just like we're encouraging you to network, well, that's what we do too. So we're constantly networking with law firms, with corporate legal departments, with nonprofits, because you never know when they're going to have a need. So we want to be there when they say, oh yeah, you know what, I do need a paralegal, or we've got this large litigation coming up, let's get a contractor in here, or something like that. So sign up with several agencies. And again, if they say, and there are agencies that will want you to sign something that says you will not sign up with any other agency, don't sign that. Walk away, that's not a good thing. All right, hidden job market, networking. We were talking about networking a little bit earlier. Write down this website, Indeed.com, I-N-D-E-E-D. Has anybody ever used it? Yes? Love it. Absolutely. It's called a web spider. What Indeed does is it goes out and it pulls jobs from other websites, puts them all on this one website. You don't have to pay a dime to do this. But you can also set up what's called a search agent, and you can have Indeed email you new jobs that match your criteria when the new jobs are posted. Our jobs are posted on Indeed, not because we post them on Indeed, because it pulls them from, honestly, I don't even know where it pulls them from. we post jobs on our own website, but we also post on Weinstock, over on Dice, on some of the schools' websites, so we'll post them there. They get pushed out to, I know Washington Post posts our jobs and things like that, and somehow it ends up on Indeed and all these other websites. We get calls from candidates saying, has anybody heard of the Posse list? Yes. We're not on it, but our jobs get posted on it every so often. They charge. We've never paid them a dime. I'm not sure why our jobs get posted on there. It was just, yeah, I laugh because every so often I'll get emails from them on a daily basis. They're all legal jobs in DC. So sign up for the Posse list. That's also really good. They charge the employers. We have chosen not to do that quite yet, but every so often, just last week, one of our jobs ended up on the Posse list, and I got the email saying, hey, Rhodes and Weinstock has this. It's like, really? That's my job. Okay. So you never know. So there are lots of ways to do that. Martindale.com. If you want to send out cold resumes, used to be, you'll remember this, MartindaleHubbell used to be this huge encyclopedia that we'd have to literally go page by page through, looking at law firms, looking at corporate legal departments, gave a lot of information. It was great. It's now electronic. It's free. Martindale.com, you can actually plug in what you're looking for. If you're interested in litigation, if you're interested in small firms versus mid-sized firms, you can put all that in. If you're interested, whether it's DC versus Des Moines, Iowa, you can put all that in, and you can come up with a list of law firms that you can then send out cold resumes to. What do you do after you send out the resumes? As Erica said earlier, follow up. You want to set yourself apart from everybody else. I can promise you that when we post an ad, we will get probably 100 to 200 resumes in response. About 10 or 15 of them are actually good. The rest of them are not. You want to be in that 10 to 15, and when I get a phone call saying, hey, I've applied for this position, I'm really interested, I will pull that resume. I will take a second look at that. That's what you want from employers. That's what you want to happen, because 14 of the 15 people are not calling me telling me that they're really interested. I may be interested in them, but if I've got this 15th person saying I'm really interested and they took the time to figure out where I am and call me, great. Yep, you've got a question?
I have I'm wondering what happens if they tell you in the ad no phone call.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would. Depends how much you want the job, I guess is what I'd say. Because generally I'd say, all right, fine, let it go. But if it's right on point and you think you're right on point for that position, and heck, we'll post attorney jobs and we'll get non-attorneys applying for it. I mean, don't bother calling me about that. But if it's a litigation paralegal job and you've got 3 years of litigation experience and that's exactly what they're looking for, you may be able to make that phone call, or even better, if you can network, if you can, you know what firm that is, you can network, find somebody else in that firm and say, hey, I've applied for this position, can you, walk my resume over there, or can you send me to the partner who's in charge of this? That's probably the best way to do it. But you're right, a lot of the ads do say no phone calls.
If I could make a suggestion, and this worked for me, I actually was just recently looking for a job in the market in DC. I do have about 3 years background experience. Between applying to getting the offer letter, it only took me 4 weeks to get a job. I started the first week of January looking. I got hired and started on February 17th. So, and one of the ways that happened was because I did see a lot of those ads, and LinkedIn is an amazing tool. This is where it works out, where you can just start, like, you pull up the company, then you see all the people who work there, and you can find somebody in HR. Hopefully you'll still be able to see their email. If you cannot, that's when you go ahead and you just Google the company, and more than likely or not, someone's email is going to come up where it's going to be like the first letter, the last name, and then the rest. You're going to know that person's email should be similar. As long as you have their whole name from LinkedIn, go and shoot the email, and you won't believe how many people will actually respond back.
Yeah, and actually, let me continue with what Christine's saying, because there's a back door. You're absolutely right. Christine's talking about it. Christine or Christina? Christine.
Yeah.
If you don't see their full name, if you're, I think, what is it, more than a second level removed from that person?
You might not see the
Okay.
last.
Here's a back door that they haven't closed yet. Go to somebody else on their list of who they're connected with, and you will find their last name on that list. Yep. So you've got John Smith over here, Alice Knight over here. Go to Alice Knight. You will find John Smith's full name. Right, in all likelihood. It's been a couple years. I can't tell you how many times I've done that. And when I first figured that out, it's like, cool. LinkedIn is great, yes, and that's all part of networking too. So that really is important. Now let's talk about social media for a second too. Erica brought it up, and LinkedIn is part of social media. Just a warning: be careful before you start looking for a job. Make sure your Facebook page, your LinkedIn page, everything is cleaned up. Because I can't tell you how many people lose jobs or lose opportunities because you go to their Facebook page, you go to their LinkedIn page, and there's a picture of them doing something unprofessional. They're done and they don't even know it. And that some people say, well, that's illegal. There was just a case about that. No, that's not what the case was about. The case was about asking for the password to get private information. Anything public is public, so you can anybody can see that. So you just want to be very careful. Clean all that stuff up before you start your job search. We actually just had this happen 2 weeks ago, actually. One of our clients is a mortgage company out in Northern Virginia, and we'd submitted a couple candidates for a loan officer assistant position, and I got a call back from the HR manager saying, have you checked out her blog? On this woman's blog, one of the candidates, and it was actually buried, so we didn't even see it. The blog was fine. It was a little controversial, but not too bad. She railed on her current employer. Never got an interview, just because of what was on her blog. So you want to be really careful.
I can say one suggestion. I've read an article, actually, I don't remember the website. It's good to Google yourself, because there are some cases that someone was looking for somebody that was not true, even criminal records that were not true.
Absolutely.
So it's good to Google yourself, see what's out there, and that's how you can protect yourself.
Great point. Absolutely. Yep.
Along that vein, what do you do if you have a name that's very similar to somebody else who may have unpleasant things on social media?
Yeah.
What do you say?
You have to change your name. No, I'm kidding. Kidding. There's nothing you can do in that situation, but you just have to be prepared for those questions.
Actually, there is one thing. You can put your LinkedIn profile URL on your resume.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that way they know that they're looking at the right picture.
Yeah.
The right you.
The right you, right.
That way if they see the crazy Facebook page of, some girl drinking or whatever, they know it's not you.
With your name too, you can start branding your name. So if you're Angela Smith, you do Angela L. Smith on everything. That's on your resume, that's on every profile. So
Yeah.
And if you use the social media tools a lot, you'll come up first, so that'll be the first one that they see. Believe it or not, there are a bunch of Melissa Foyers, the strangest last name ever. I think there's 4 of us that pop up when I Google, but I come up first because I go on there and I change something on my profile or I post something, and so if they're going to click on one, they're going to see that first, and that's the impression that you want to get first. So.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't have a lot public on my Facebook just for security reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So when businesses see that you have a lot of stuff not showing, just a few slips, like does that look bad to them?
For
That
Facebook, that's good.
Yeah, that's right. I will be the first to. I don't even have a personal Facebook page. We have a company Facebook page. I certainly don't take that as a negative. I agree. I think that's a good thing. If there's something negative on there, that's one thing. But if there's no Facebook page, but the woman who said Google yourself, absolutely, because you should have something on there. LinkedIn is great. LinkedIn, think of as a professional Facebook. So if nothing else, create a LinkedIn page, even if it's down. That's good. Very good. That's okay.
That's good.
That's
Lock
all right.
down your Facebook, and it's going to be personal and family.
I think that with LinkedIn, I would just say put a picture of yourself on it. I'm learning how to use it a lot as part of my networking, and there are some people that don't put a picture on it, and it just is very helpful to. I would like to see what you look like. So, and this was a paralegal, and she had a good. Another thing is to prepare your LinkedIn profile, and that's another issue. But she had a good profile.
Yeah. Please
So these people know what you look like.
And also
Compared to your Facebook.
proofread everything that you put online too. People don't want to see typos, spelling mistakes, things like that. Likewise with a resume. Another trick for your resume: have a friend of yours read it backwards. Seriously, it's so easy for the eye to kind of skip over. You missed this word, but if you're reading it backwards, you have to focus on it. We get resumes all the time that are pretty bad, and that leaves an impression with employers. All right. Other questions?
So I'll go ahead and just sort of introduce myself. But first of all, I want to thank Erica and Jeff for giving really concrete advice. You hear these terms networking, and it's like, well, what is it? And I think we got some really good tips and very concrete pointers. We're recording this presentation, so I saw some of you writing frantically. We'll send you the link. What I want you guys to do is just pat yourself on the back right now, because by showing up here tonight, I counted there's 26 of us in this room. Just by showing up here tonight, you've added 25 people to your network. And you've added a broad range of people, so you've added working professionals, working paralegals, you've added somebody with a career services background, you've added a recruiter, you've added a former president of a professional society. So thank you guys for attending, and congratulations for that. So again, by way of introduction, I'm Derek Haseltine. I'm Director of Career Services for the College of Professional Studies. And Paralegal Studies is one of the programs that falls under the College of Professional Studies umbrella. It's probably one of our biggest customers in CPS. So for our current students or for our alumni, you have access to me as a career resource. And if Melissa was able to sell you on the program and you're thinking about coming to GW, you will have me as a resource. So I was a little bit nervous thinking about, how much should I promote? Because I saw all these hands go up, and most of you aren't students or alumni of the program. But one of the things that I will say is we just revamped our website, and it's not private. So you can log onto our website. It's cps.gwu.edu/career, and I'll put that in the email follow-up to everybody. And we have a wealth of resources on there. So we've talked a lot about LinkedIn, we've talked a lot about networking. We have links that go right out to those resources, how to clean up your LinkedIn profile. What if you Google yourself, you don't like what you see? We'll take you to a wiki page where you can clean up that. So we have a lot of resources on there. One of the tabs that's on our website is program-specific resources, and that's sort of a work in progress. We're going to be updating that with links with all of our CPS programs, but I think the one that's built out the biggest right now is the Paralegal Studies link. So there's a lot of blogs on there that have tremendous articles, resources. I know Erica talked about contributing as a writer to some of these blogs, and I'm sure that they'd be welcoming to receiving your commentary, since most of us here are working professionals. Another thing that we have on our site, in addition to career services, so my background is career counseling. I'm a career counselor by training, so I'm kind of the outsider on the panel. I don't have the legal training or legal background, but I do have the career counseling background. And I am available to work with students and alumni on an individual basis for a variety of issues, whether it be fine-tuning a resume or cover letter, or job search strategy, putting together a job search strategy and putting a plan in place, networking strategies. One of the things that I enjoy most is actually doing mock interviews. And we have a really nice software package on our site called Interview Stream. So for our students here, this is a resource where you can go on, you can record yourself doing a mock interview. And it really is designed to polish you up before you hit the interviewing circuit. Because you really want to screw up while you're practicing, not while you're actually out on the circuit. So through this software, you can go in there. We have standardized interviews. You can select from some of the standardized interviews, or you can create your own interview by going on there. You can do a self-assessment, or you can send it to me for critique, and then we can meet and go into that in a little bit more detail. So those are the things that I really wanted to promote. Also, we have all the social media channels. We have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter handle, and we run LinkedIn groups for all of our CPS programs. So I'm going to stop babbling and I'm going to turn it back over to questions.
I went to school at Indiana University, so obviously they're not local to me. How can my alumni association there help me get a job here?
And
What's the best way to use them?
So this is a really good point. So you went to Indiana University, which is a large university, and I would
Also 4 states away.
I would guarantee you. So let me back that up a little bit. So for alumni looking at career services from their previous institution, one of the things that I would say is just Google your institution. So Indiana University Career Services. It should give you the main landing page for career services for that institution. I would call that number and say, I'm an alumni of Indiana University. What career services are available to me as an alumni of this institution? And they'll either there's a person who does alumni career services. More than likely, there's a person there that does alumni career services. They probably even have their own office of alumni career services. With a big university like that, so if anyone went to a large university, most of those universities have local chapters too. So there's probably a DC chapter of Indiana University who has a LinkedIn group. So I might start with LinkedIn, then I would use your best friend Google to find the career services portion of that. And just using LinkedIn as a search tool. So going in there and doing a people search on Indiana University, paralegal, DC, bring you a nice list of folks, or Indiana University, or whatever you're looking for as a search agent.
Can I add to that a little bit too? Then also go to Martindale and plug in Indiana University, come up with a list of attorneys who went to Indiana University who are in DC. There's the first 40 people you're going to network with. Right?
I mean, that's a big deal. A college, a university affiliation
Absolutely.
is like the top. Your family, I guess, would come first, and
Yeah.
probably your best friend or something. Your university affiliation is a huge draw, and especially if it's not one that's in the area.
Right.
Because, yeah, I mean, fine, you go to GW and somebody else goes to GW, yes, you're going to have a connection, but so did a ton of other people, especially as an undergrad. Maybe not the paralegal program, but as an undergrad. But man, if you find Indiana University connections here, and you will, it's a big city with a lot of people from all over, that person's going to be so excited that you ask them for an info interview or to talk with them, because it means a lot to people. I went to Brandeis, which is up in Boston, and man, anybody who contacts me from Brandeis, and I've gotten them, I will contact them. I mean, I'll say whatever you want.
Well, yeah, I completely,
Well,
I completely agree with what Melissa is saying. My undergrad to small school in upstate New York, anytime I get a phone call, the question is, when do you want to be here? It's as simple as that. I will say that I will meet with anybody. I won't necessarily be able to get them a job, but I will try. And that's informational interviewing. That's what Erica was talking about earlier. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
I just, similar to you, I just want to say, like on my LinkedIn site, I have over 500 connections. One of the connections is Erica. And if you connect with me, my connections become your second connections.
Right.
And let's say you Google my connections and you find somebody you like to be introduced. I'd be more than happy to tell me what you want me to say. Okay. But I'd be more happy to introduce them to you, and then it's up to them to make you their first connection. But then you do have a point of interest. So that's kind of how, if you don't know how LinkedIn works, that's and then you grow your network from, now they're your first connections, all their connections are your secondary connections, and then they can introduce you to somebody in their secondary connections, and that's how that growth of network begins. So I have my card, email me. I've been more.
I just want to say one quick thing about networking too, is we've been talking about networking outward, but I think it's really important to remember when you talk about networking that it's a two-way street, and there's ways that you can cultivate and develop your network. So all the hands that went up that are practicing paralegals here in the DC area, there's opportunities that you can give back to your network. So you can contact your alumni institution and say, look, I'm in DC, I'm a practicing paralegal. Do you have any mentoring programs, or is there anyone there who's would like career advice? I'd be happy to give informational interviews. So kind of paying it forward, and you never know who those contacts know and can open up other doors for you too. Because that person that you're doing the informational interview with, they might have interviewed with 10 people that can be relevant to your growth and your professional development. So never discredit those opportunities.
I'm currently in the paralegal studies program, and I'm in my first semester. So when would you suggest that we start looking for jobs, especially when some of us have no professional experience whatsoever?
Yesterday. No, I don't. In terms of the job, and I think Jeff can probably give you more of a concrete timeline as a recruiter in the industry. But I think it's never too early to start having conversations, getting on radar screens. So if there's potential employers that this is a firm that I really want to go to when it's all said and done, I think you would start cultivating those relationships now and developing some of those contacts, whether it be through an informational interview or just kind of going to networking events. But the process, we've heard, can take 4 weeks. The federal sector is notorious for sometimes moving at a snail's pace. It can take months, almost a year to find a position. But
yeah, no, Derek's absolutely right. If you could start even during school with pro bono opportunities, internships, if you have a target group of law firms or corporate legal departments that you're interested in, contact the HR person there, contact one of the attorneys and say, look, I'm in school now, I'm starting to be a paralegal, do you have any internship programs? I'd work for free just to get the experience. That's great. So if you can start, as Derek said, yesterday, great. And that goes on your resume. There's nothing wrong with putting internships or pro bono work on your resume. That's still work, that's still
experience. It still counts as experience.
Exactly, exactly.
And I can just give you a little bit of experience based on what actually happened to me last year. I interned on the Hill for 6 months, both on the House and the Senate side. And the firm that I'm actually working at now, they have a government policy group. And although I was hired for a certain group to work with, they saw that on my resume and they're like, oh, do you happen to have any connections with a certain part of the Senate? And I was like, actually I do. I work for the Small Business Committee. So just that alone, I actually just helped the connection with the own government policy group within the firm. So, and that was all just interning, 6 months on the Hill. So you don't necessarily have to do something that's maybe paralegal related, but anything legally related that you have an interest in that you want to work in later. Because you could work at a firm doing policy, or anything government related, and being a paralegal, but you didn't have to have the paralegal background to get that job, per se. So anything like that, I highly suggest. And if you are looking to intern on the Hill, if you go to senate.gov and the ushouse.gov, they both have bulletins just for internships, and they constantly come out every week. So I really highly recommend that you guys look at that, and you'll see what offices, committees, senators are all looking for interns. And actually now is a time to look at for the summer. So.
What was the one?
Senate.gov, and if you go to the employment section, they come out with their bulletin every week, and so does the House, house.gov.
Okay, let me give you one more website for political positions, bradtraverse.com.
What is it?
Brad Traverse, Traverse. We actually post on there sometimes for political positions. I don't know if they have internships on there. I've actually never checked for that, but I know they're all political Hill type positions.
Did you say Brad?
Brad, like the name, a person's name, Brad, BRADTRAVERSE.com. .com. Yep.
I remember when I was in school, my paralegal program, I had just started, and I was already looking at jobs, but I was just starting in school, so I didn't want to get ahead of myself. And I would always print out a job that I found was ideal and kind of use qualifications as goals, skills to attain, keep in mind and that
We love students like that. That's exactly what you want to do. I can't tell you how many people would come up to me at the end of the program and show me the resume, and then I taught in the program and say, didn't shouldn't you do blank, 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 blank? Don't you know how to do blank, blank? Yeah. You might want to put it on the resume. It would be good information for the employer to have. So if you can do that, if you can be looking at positions, using that as research, even if you're not applying for them, and then making notes, and then when you accomplish that, make a note what you did, and it'll be a lot more helpful at the end of it when you're trying to, or even towards the end of it when you're trying to capture all of it in your
Helps you
resume.
visualize.
Yeah, it's great. That's great.
And I think the resume, that's a huge point for networking. That was always a point for my students that work pretty well, is to get your resume in front of somebody. You know, if you send your resume in an email, it's pretty obvious. I'm looking for a job. Hey, hire me. You kind of back somebody into a corner and they feel a little uncomfortable. But if you send it and you say, you know, I'm contacting you as a resource because I thought you'd be helpful in my next job search, my transition, would you be willing to provide some feedback on my resume? And you make sure your resume is really fine-tuned, so you're sending a really good resume to that person. But that's a surefire way to get your resume right in front of somebody. You know, and it doesn't put the pressure on them of, are you hiring right now? Because typically if you say that, they're going to say, yeah, sure, contact HR. And you're not really getting the information that you need. So it's a good way to start building that relationship that's, I found to be effective.
I have one comment on the networking that Erika stated. It's so important. When I was in school, we took a class, the leadership class, and then it was an exercise, basically a chart, putting all the connections that you had, and then how many contacts that you had in the last 2 years. And then at the end of the exercise, then everybody had to put like the title of the job, how much they were making. From the exercise, basically the result was people that had more connections, were in a regular contract, higher salary, top positions. So it's very, very important. It was a great exercise, basically. And then networking is like, you can have a lot, but the key is like how active you are with them. So when you make connections through LinkedIn and somebody accepts you, it doesn't stop there. Let's say Christmas is coming, send an email to all connections and say like, wishing you a happy Christmas. And then it kind of recalls like, oh, who is this person? And then they see your profile. And then maybe that person is like a hiring manager and says like, oh, I hadn't noticed, this has a great profile. So these are really actually important.
Good points.
I have a question. So we're talking about networking, which I don't know about all of you, but that word at least used to strike fear right in my heart. So, and Erica, you mentioned at the beginning that, I think right at the beginning you said, I wasn't always the staff going, and then I found NCAPA. So for us dyed-in-the-wool introverts that hate the word networking and are listening to this going, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here, I don't know anybody, I don't have any connections. What's a good, Jeff and Erica, and I know Jarrett can address this as well, what's a good way of thinking about this process for an introvert who's not going to work a room at an event? Maybe go to the event, but is not going to be walking around and chatting up the place.
One of my favorite tactics when I was first sort of starting out and really scared, I didn't work with any other paralegals, so I started going to NCAPA events by myself. I'd kind of find the other person in the room that was by themselves and be like, hey, so are you by yourself too? And then you've got a buddy.
Yeah.
And you can either work the room together or you can just focus on building that relationship. But treat it like you would friendships. I mean, that's what they are. They're professional friendships. And that also helps you, keep it in perspective too. You wouldn't ask your friend, to just do something for you, like off the bat. So, if you build that relationship, that's when you get the sort of back and forth going.
Also, I have to say, I'm not that outgoing either, and I just joined NCAPA last October. It's really hard to sit there and not interact with people when you see everybody else talking and having so much fun. Like, even if you're not outgoing, you'll find yourself like gravitating to a group and you'll just like start talking to them and introduce yourself, because I know I am. And I never thought I would do that either.
Well, keep in mind that any of these events, you already have a common interest with everybody who's there, whether it's NCAPA, whether it's baseball, whatever it is. But if you walk in and there are 400 people there, don't freak out. Pick 3. Just pick 3 people and say, I want to meet that person, I want to meet that person, I'm going to meet that person. And that's your goal for the night, not to meet 400, and that's where you get started. And you'll be amazed at, whether it's seeing the person standing by themselves. I think that's great. That makes perfect sense with what Erica was saying earlier. So maybe those are the folks you want to focus on, but that's how you can start building your network. Bearing in mind that you're all there to have a good time, to for something in common, so you can talk about that. That gets the conversation going.
And I personally, I hate networking events, and I don't like working the room. And I think a lot of it's quantity over, or quality over quantity. And so if I'm going to a networking event like that and maybe I didn't talk to somebody, I figure out who coordinated that event and say, hey, would you be willing to share the contact information from that event, email addresses and who was there. And then usually I'll follow up with these people and say, hey, we didn't have a chance to talk. I was really interested in meeting with you. And kind of the email softens the blow a little bit. Obviously you don't want to live in a virtual world and you don't want to live behind email, but sometimes that helps soften the contact and connection. So I found that to be a
good question.
How important do you think paralegal certifications are? And are they necessary or?
Now you're talking about the exams,
yes.
Like, as a certified,
Right. Not the certificate.
Paralegal certificate.
No,
which is completely different. Always want to get that one.
Yeah, well, that's always a big deal to me too, because I get resumes in that say, I'm a certified paralegal, and I'm like, I look at it and I'm thinking, you don't have the NALA exam on here, you don't have the NIFBA exam on here.
Does
Oh, you went to
understand
school.
The difference before
You're certificated, not certified.
Different. It's going to depend on the employer. Some employers will require it, some don't care. Yeah, I mean that's
gives you a leg up. Huh?
It couldn't hurt.
It doesn't
for sure,
hurt.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
That's for sure.
I've been told that for one, when you're looking for work, instead of saying you're unemployed, to say you're looking for your next opportunity, and also to get networking cards, which basically just has your name, phone number, and a little, maybe 3 words about yourself, which I just got mine this week. This is my second networking event this week plus school.
Good. No, but it's great.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So, I haven't been home all night.
I was gonna actually tell, like, for you guys who are students who don't have, if you guys don't have business cards, Vistaprint is an amazing tool. You can design a free card with all your information on it, and you only have to pay like the shipping. Maybe it's like $10, but it's 250 cards technically for free. So use Vistaprint, get your cards done, so that when you come to something like this, you can just at least pass out your information to somebody right away. Not having to worry about like, oh, does it look cheesy? I'm giving a card that I don't really have an employer. It doesn't matter. It actually really does work. Because before I had my job, I had my personal one. So I would definitely get them done. It's $10. It's not, it's a great investment. So.
And to be honest, it's kind of impressive. It shows me when people are networking and they don't currently have an employer. And especially when they're students, I'm kind of impressed. I'm like, oh, you know what? They actually went through the trouble to do that, to make this up, to think ahead and say, I want other people to be able to contact me. How do I do it when I don't have an employer? You know what? I'm just going to make my own.
The point that you made about writing, I do that religiously. I think it's one of the best things. You meet somebody, you write. So Jeff, Redskins fan, he likes baseball. Where his wife went to law school, so might almost be stalkerish. How much I know about him now. But,
mine are really weird.
But I think it's important. Time lapses, and it's like, okay, well, what are some of these? It's all about building rapport too, and the more personal connections you have on that level.
Another question. Jeff, you were talking about maybe less than desirable agencies to work with, but one of the things you mentioned isn't necessarily specific to an agency. You talked about resume writing.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts about hiring a resume writing service? I have seen this a lot lately.
Yeah, and there are a lot of services. Some of them are great. Some of them are expensive and don't do a whole lot. A lot of agencies will help you do this. You can go online and get help with this. You can go to the career office and get help with this. I know that we will sit down and we will help rewrite resumes, for candidates that we want to work with. But I can't say that's every agency. Now, every agency I've been with, and again, large agencies and small agencies, so you can ask about that. But if you're really totally stuck after meeting with the career office, after going online, after reading books, some of them are really good, and they may not charge a whole lot to help you write a resume. And that's the resume that you're just going to keep revising throughout your career.
Jeff, I have a question for you, and this recruiter. Because when I was job searching, I found all these postings, half of them not knowing that they were through a recruiter because they wouldn't say it was. Make a long story short, I went and met with 5 different recruiters. Out of the 5, I actually really only ended up working with 2 that actually followed through with me.
Right.
So I kind of found that there's something that they're looking for, not what's on paper, but in the actual physical relationship that you have with them.
Yeah.
So what would you say are those key elements?
That's a great question. And there are kind of 2 questions here. Just because a recruiter doesn't respond to your resume immediately or for a week doesn't mean that they don't like you. Don't take that personally. When we post jobs, we can get anywhere, I mentioned earlier, literally hundreds of resumes come in, because we'll post on Craigslist too, and the stuff that we get from Craigslist is crazy. But so we have to, this is our job, we go through all of those resumes, and we will pick the top 10 or 15 resumes that match the criteria for that job order for that client. Those are the folks that we're going to call. We'll also search our database. Frankly, that's where we start, looking at the database to see if anybody submitted their resume to us already, and we're going to call them as well. If you are asked to come in for an interview with a recruiter, ask the recruiter how they want you to keep in touch. Some recruiters will like a weekly phone call, with a status update, a weekly email with a status update. Don't worry about it, I'll call you when your name comes up in a search. That may be what the recruiter says. Again, don't take that personally. That's not necessarily a bad thing. We really do that. I've contacted candidates 6 months after I've met with them, because we just didn't have anything for those 6 months. And sometimes, yes, they have a perm job at that point. Okay, well, all agencies go through that. All employers go through that. Keep checking back on their website. If there is another position that you're interested in, email your recruiter or call the company and say, hey, I submitted my resume about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I see this other position. I think I'm even better for this. They'll make a note of that. And you've probably already been assigned to a recruiter without necessarily knowing it. They'll let that recruiter know. All right, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have a question also? Yeah.
I was going to ask, there's functional and chronological resumes. Is there one better than the other? The paralegals?
Yeah. The more common one is the reverse the chronological resume. What you're doing currently, your last job, the job before that, the job before that. There are a number of employers, that's all they want to see. The functional resumes tend to be for the employees who've had a lot of different jobs, but they want to show how they tie together. At least that's in my experience. You guys may disagree with that. But, so that makes sense in that situation, but if you've got somebody who's been a paralegal for a couple years and had another career before that, just keep it reverse chron, that's fine. That's what most employers expect to see.
Yeah, so let's say you're trying to do a career shift, like I did. I did use a functional resume for a career shift. I made sure my cover letter was fabulous, I would hope, and that was obviously successful. I know of at least one person who's very high up in NCAPA who came to me to tell me that she got her job because she used a functional resume. Because her new employer told her, the reason you got this job is you set out the categories of skills and experiences that I wanted. You set them right out in headings, you put under them where you got the experience in that area from, and in 10 seconds I was able to see that you had everything I was looking for. That wasn't a law firm. Law firms tend to be a little more stodgy in their thinking about resumes. But this was, I think this was either a nonprofit or a startup company, and she couldn't figure out how she got it, and they told her that's exactly how you did it. So it may matter who your employer is.
Good point. And
for the out-of-the-box employers, they're going to be more receptive to an out-of-the-box resume, and your typical large law firm may be less so.
Yeah, and go ahead. No, please.
No, I was going to say, functional resumes, they're obviously harder to write than a reverse chronological, and I think you want to be really cautious if you are writing a functional resume, because I've seen some that are written very well, but they're missing all the targeted skill sets. So I think that's where sort of informational interviewing and network really comes into play. You're looking at this sector, you're looking to make a change. Talk to as many people as you can. If this is you're interested in putting together a functional resume, talk to as many people as you can and say, what are the core competencies? What are the skill sets that I need to be successful in this field or in this position. And that's how you're going to start building out some of the sections. Because if you have a brilliant functional resume, but you're missing all the targets, it's not doing you any good.
Well, you can also use the job description. You wouldn't believe how many people don't actually read the job description. The job description pretty much tells you what it is that they're, I mean, you need to do what Derek's talking about when you're going to circulate your resume to people for networking purposes. You better have some idea of what these people are going to want to see. If you're sending a resume in for a particular job, if they did a good job writing the description, they should be giving you the title. I mean, they don't know that that's what they're doing, but they're giving you those subject headings right in that position. If you're not addressing them, that's just dumb.
We know that's what we're doing. Yeah, so absolutely. By the same token, it is absolutely fine to have multiple versions of your resume for different types of positions. Just make sure you remember who you sent it to, which version you sent to each employer. So
that's where that spreadsheet helps.
That's where the spreadsheet helps. Don't send the real estate resume to the litigation firm, for instance. Okay. Yep.
I have a question, and I know I'll be switching topic. I'm looking at the interview questions.
Yeah.
And
I forgot about those.
I'm changing field. Well, I'll probably combine it. I was a medical promoter. I got my paralegal associates. How does a paralegal save and make a company money? Because this is really about what interviews are about. From the side of the employer, they want somebody who wants, in my opinion, save and make a company money.
Well,
or is it more of a supportive role and doesn't do that?
Yeah, well, if it's a law firm, you're earning money because, in all likelihood, they're billing for your time,
right.
Whether you've got billable hours or not. They're billing for your time. If it's a company, you're absolutely right that in many companies, the legal department is considered a cost center, not a profit center. So you do have that issue. Yeah. Which, that's a challenge. Will you get that question in your interview? Probably not.
Right.
So I wouldn't worry about that. Yeah, the list of questions, I give a number of seminars around DC, and there's a list of potential interview questions just to help you prepare for interviews. These are very typical questions. I want to call your attention to the last 5 or 6. They're behavioral interview questions. They're very popular. They're interesting questions. Tell me about a time that ... And you can see what those questions are. Have those answers prepared before you go in for the interview, so you can kind of think about them, because you may very well get half of these questions during the interview. Some of them are basics about your resume and stuff like that, but the behavioral questions. Okay. So you had a question back there?
I was just going to say, if you take, when you're doing up your resumes and you look at the job description and you take the keywords out of that job description, there is a program on the internet that you can put your resume into, and it'll tell you, it'll spell out every time you list those keywords. So whenever you fill out an application for a job and you submit your resume, you have a better chance of getting an interview if you have those keywords in your resume. Because I did sit on a job hiring committee once, and we were looking for specific things, and if you didn't have it, we just put your resume aside.
Well, great point. And actually, if you're applying for government positions, they will put your resume through a program just like that. And no person is even going to see your resume until it hits that number. Great point.
Jeff, I have a question for you. Would you recommend that somebody who goes through a recruiter is also applying positions on the side individually? Because I had the problem that I didn't know. I probably should have not done it, because the firms I was applying to for the positions that I was looking at and wanted, the recruiters were also hiring for, and then they would ask me, did you send your resume here? And I'd be like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well now we can't send it. So I had no idea, because I know the recruiter's an easier way through the door than it is to send it to the firm.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That is a great point, because we run into this literally every day.
Yeah,
one of the issues, here's a benefit of using a recruiter. We've got contacts with the firm. So we can make a case for a candidate that may not have 100% of all the things the firm is looking for, but if we say, you know what, we met Christine and she is amazing. She's very professional, and we meet all of our candidates before we submit them anywhere. And actually another difference between recruiters. We get our candidates authorization to submit them for the specific company or firm before we submit the resume. Not all agencies do that. Ask that question.
Many don't do
Right.
that.
There are a lot of places that hear about job openings, they just start submitting resumes, they may or may not tell the candidate. We think that's wrong. What if you're not interested? What if you've already applied? What if the money's not right? What if you know the manager and you never worked for him for a million years? You know, stuff like that. We wouldn't know that unless we asked you. So ask those questions of the agencies. But absolutely, apply on your own, but talk to your recruiter first, because if the recruiter has contacts, we may be working on the same job, and your recruiter was absolutely right. Once you submit your resume, we're done. We literally can't talk to the firm about you. So we can't help. In fact, we're going to be trying to sell other candidates against you, as tough as that sounds, but that's our job. We're working with a lot of candidates. Okay? Other quick, yeah?
How much do you charge?
How much do we charge?
Yeah.
We don't charge the employee anything.
Yeah, I could just come to you.
You can just send us your resume, we'll assign you to a recruiter.
I have what I think is a fairly unique situation. It's not good. It may not be as easy as you think.
We can talk afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were talking about interview questions, so I imagine everybody's least favorite interview question to be asked, other than tell me about yourself, Judy, is for people up, is what's your greatest weakness? And so I'm interested in both Erica as a hirer and Jeb as a recruiter / hirer. Do you ask that question and maybe give us a little insight into what you're really looking for and what might be a good strategy, other than talking to your career services office, who will coach you through that process, but if they don't have that, what's a good way to attack that one?
Go ahead. Here's another benefit of a recruiter or the career services office. We'll also coach you through that question, because we may not ask that question, but a lot of employers will ask that question. What you want to do is turn the negative into a positive. Find a way to turn the negative into a positive. I am very detail oriented, and sometimes, I hate to give up something that I've been editing because I want it to be perfect. That's my biggest weakness. That may be the right answer, or a right answer. I shouldn't say the right answer. So whether it's something like that, and that is such a common answer that a lot of employers have given up on that question, frankly, because a lot of people use that answer. I'm very, detail oriented. I like to be on time. All of that stuff. But that's kind of the theory. Now, just taking a step back for a second, with a lot of these questions, there really is no right or wrong answer. Well, I shouldn't say that. Some of them there are wrong answers, but
I had somebody say on a mock interview, thank goodness, I said, what's your greatest weakness? This was a lawyer. He said, my research and writing skills aren't so good.
Fine to tell me that here. You're not going to say that in an interview, right? What often the employers are looking for is how you answer the question. What is your thought process? Can you back it up? Stuff like that, rather than, what's the correct answer? That's not the correct answer, what the candidate gave, but they really want to see. Do you have any other thoughts?
I actually hate that question, so I don't ask it, because I used to, sort of go through some of the standard questions, and I always ended up getting BS answers, to be honest. And so it never told me anything. Right. It never helped me. I mean, if somebody gave a thoughtful response, like, I really had a problem with this, and this is how that was an issue, and this is what I've done to fix that, and it was sincere, then it was okay. But most of the time, I just got I just work so hard, I just can't help myself.
Right.
Exactly. I'm a perfectionist.
Everybody's
Way back when. I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah. Right.
I try too hard to be a perfectionist.
Well, and also, I'll just add to that a little bit. I was also a recruiter too for in the technical arena, and I think you're right. I think you can give a very canned, very artificial response to that. So I would actually turn it into a situational question and say, if I were to ask your previous supervisor, what was your biggest weakness? What do you think they would say? And also your colleagues. If they were to ask your previous colleagues, what were your biggest weaknesses? And then also, like you said, put them in a situation. Well, tell me an example of how that might have hurt, or how you've been working to correct that. So.
Regarding her questions, I was just looking over your sheet. How would you, maybe I'm reading into it too much, and I'm not, but like you have on question 15 and 16, what makes you laugh, what makes you angry, what are you all trying to, besides establishing personality, you're trying to decide, like, and maybe this is my problem. how a company culture works or something like that?
Bingo. That is exactly right. That's one of those questions where there's no right answer.
Hard enough for your networking. You don't want to say what makes you.
Oh no, in interviews that's a very fair question,
Right.
because if they're looking, they want to make sure that you fit into the culture.
Right.
If your answer is something like, well, I don't laugh, or nothing makes me laugh.
Oh, they do. Oh, you'd be shocked what people will say. I asked somebody once, what are your greatest strengths? And I swear this was an attorney, turned to me and said, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure I really have that many.
And clearly interviewing was not one of them.
Right? I mean, give me something to work with.
So people will say,
Yeah.
Where are you? You know.
That's one of those questions where I've actually been asked that question in an interview. What makes you laugh? What makes you belly laugh was the question.
I'm thinking, I don't know, I'm thinking, what makes you angry? Of the company culture, are you trying to see if, how as a potential employee, that would have to do with a lot of networking with to figure stuff like that out.
No, you gotta be sincere.
Yeah, just be you.
Because look,
exactly.
what'll happen is, let's say if you're sincere, and you give an answer, and it doesn't fit with the culture, you want to know that. That's not a good fit for you.
That's
So if you're trying to play it, you're gonna. If you can play it, you'll get the job, and then you won't stay in it.
Right.
You won't last.
That's right.
If there's one thing that I learned throughout this process is that you are analyzing your potential employer as much as they are analyzing you. Because there's nothing worse than working for someone that you are not going to be happy with. So, like, I always thought that I really wanted to work in a very, very big, large law firm. I realized after going to the interviews, going to the buildings and seeing, that they had a gym, a cafeteria, a daycare center, pretty much that kind of overwhelmed me, and I said, you know what, this is not for me. So I knew that the mid-sized firm was for me. And this mid-sized firm I work for, they're based out of the Midwest, very laid back, not traditional DC firm, that you would think of. So you have to remember that you're analyzing them as much as they're analyzing you. And you have to really, really feel it that, okay, I think this is like the right one for me if they make an offer. You kind of know walking out if it's not for you or not. Even if the interview didn't go well, you just know by, who interviewed you, the personalities, the culture of the firm. You just know.
Treat it like a date.
Yeah, exactly.
You're interviewing them too. I'm serious.
It's absolutely right.
You're right.
Two things. I actually went on a job interview and was asked what 5 or 6 categories I would want to be asked in a Jeopardy question.
Wow.
That's a good
I like that. Yeah.
One of the recruiters, or one of the people had kind of given me a heads up that, there's going to be a question that's going to be really odd. It's kind of like a game show thing. And so I'm kind of thinking about, because this was the first person I interviewed with, and it was the last person who asked me, and I'm like, what kind of question is this?
And
she didn't give it away, but she kind of.
Do you know what they were looking for?
I have no clue.
How quickly you think on your feet.
Probably.
That's it. That's it. Because there's no right or wrong answer, but can you come up with categories? Let's see how creative are you? Yeah, that's all.
The other thing I would say is dealing with a recruiter can actually be really good because you will get feedback once you've done your interview of what they, you're not going to get it if you're doing the interview but through by yourself. But your recruiter can find out what was the good things and the bad things about the interview. Yeah. However it turns out, you can at least get the pointers.
And we can also give you inside information. You're going to be meeting with this person. Here's what this person is like. You're not going to be meeting with this person. Stuff like that. Tricks about parking at wherever you're going. So I mean, there are a lot of good things, and I don't want anybody to walk away thinking that we are the the best agency in town, even though we are. There are a lot of good agencies out there in DC, and so look around, talk to people who've worked with agencies, with recruiters, find out who they've had success with, talk to them.
So sticking with our format and respecting our panelists' time, we'll probably have time for one last burning question.
As a student, how would you suggest that we find out what type of law we're interested in going to as paralegal, especially because we're still in the first semester. So we don't really know a lot.
Well, what interests you now?
Well, right now we're only doing.
Don't think about the law. Think about your hobbies.
Don't think about class.
Well,
What is it that?
I got into the program because I was interested in law in general and learning about the law. So now that I'm in the class, I'm learning that it's a lot more than I thought it was. So I don't know. Like everything.
Did you take the intro? Did you take American jurisprudence?
Yes.
So, I mean, one of the things that I love, and I taught that class up until this year, but one of the things I love about that class is you hit a lot. In that, there's a lot that gets covered in that first class. I would go through that and see what was I reading about that looked interesting as a starting point. I mean, you have some constitutional law stuff in there. You may or may not make a career out of that, but keep that in mind as something that you might be interested in. Anything, as you're going through the program, anything that catches your attention, go find somebody who's doing it to talk to about it, and do it as a student, because people love to talk to students because they're not competition when they're students. So if you're in the litigation class, connect with Professor Everhart, talk with her about it, talk with fellow classmates who are in there who are doing that kind of work. We usually get a lot of people who say that they're interested in IP as they're going through the intellectual property courses because those are really fun. People get really excited about that. Legal research and writing, as of now, hasn't excited anybody enough to want to just do that for a living. But Larry Ross would talk to you about that if that's what you want to do. But I mean, that's part of the reason that you're in the program, is that as you're starting to see things pop up, make a note. That's something that I really enjoyed hearing about. And then you can use a LinkedIn, or really you can also, if you're a student, you can talk with Derek, because Derek can hook you up with somebody who's an alum. He'll probably use LinkedIn to do it, but he's got the connection with them to say, hey, we've got a student who's interested in finding out more about X. Will you talk with them? They'll always say yes. And then we can make some connections. There are a lot of connections that get made in the program. A lot of mentoring and relationships. And that's the best way to find out, talking with people about it. What do they like? What don't they like? Reading the newspaper. I mean, what looks interesting in the paper, chances are there's a legal aspect to it somehow.
Well, everywhere.
Right. There's no field it doesn't touch.
And keep one thing in mind also, when you pick that first job and you go into trust and estates law and 6 months in you say, oh my God, what did I do? That's okay.
Yeah.
You can always change to another practice area. When I was a second-year summer associate for a small firm in New York, they practiced general practice, but one of the areas they had was domestic relations, family law. And after handling one case in family law, said, I will never practice family law. When I graduated law school, I was a government contract litigator, and after a couple of years of that, I couldn't stand it anymore, and I was doing pro bono work in family law. And guess what my second firm did? And I loved it. It was family law. So two extremes. That's okay. You can change practice areas. It can be tough depending on how long you've been in it, but there are going to be some threads there. And just having the good paralegal background and experience, that's great. Any practice area is going to need that.
See, one thing I would add is that being an IP paralegal, don't feel you need to, especially if you do like the litigation side or the patent side, don't feel you need to know anything about patents, because trust me, you don't. You will get the basics of what a patent is, but you don't need to have a chemical or an engineering or mechanical background. It's basically litigation, so it's litigation, it's litigation, it's litigation.
Yeah.
I would think that the Paralegal Association can help too, because you'll actually meet actual paralegals like working in the different fields, and they can tell you, if you think, oh, I'd be interested in working in that, I think, well, they can give you a first-hand glance at what it's like to actually really work in that.
And we can help, and Jeff is somebody who could also help tell you what there's a market for, because being interested in something doesn't mean that there's jobs available in it. I had people who were interested in mergers and acquisitions a couple of years ago, and I said, well,
this year,
that's nice.
Entertainment law, unless you know somebody, forget it.
Jeff, what are the
IP is still very hot. IP seems to always be very hot. Litigation. Commercial real estate is picking up steam. Yeah, commercial real estate. Oh, was it?
Now the pain, the real estate market is
Now it's
starting to recover.
Yeah.
You started to see more?
Yeah. Yep.
Like e-discovery?
E-discovery is part of litigation, absolutely. Absolutely, that is hot. Yep.
I was going to tell you that I'm writing my thesis right now on fashion and copyright.
And pretty much the fashion industry is having like a huge problem, obviously, because they're not protected. So during my interview for my job that I just got, one of the attorneys is a trademark attorney. And I told him that I was a full-time student, I was working on my thesis, he asked me what it was, and I told him what it was, and he was like, oh, well, that's really interesting, you know, I actually have a couple clients that are in the fashion industry, and if you ever want to maybe work on a case or on a call, I'll be more than willing to like let you in. And it's funny because I don't have at all an IP background. I would love to get into IP. It's very difficult because the majority of the postings, you do really have to have a lot of experience in IP. But just from that alone, I'm taking him up on his offer. And he actually, after the interview a week later, I hadn't even gotten the position yet, he sent me an email with the DC Bar link. The DC Bar actually had an event on fashion and IP. And he's like, oh, I thought of you when I saw this on the events page.
That's great.
Go to the event. I went to the event. I wrote him an email afterwards, said, thank you so much. It's going to help me on my paper. So just because of that, like fashion, something that's totally out of the loop from law, kind of gave me a big eye-opening experience. And so I really highly recommend that. Like anything you like, music, anything like art, just go for it and see what you can find. You'll find somebody somewhere that is in that like little small circle. So I don't think you have to like, I always tell people don't go straight to like litigation or, very under the umbrella type of law, because there's so many variations. And if you just go something you're passionate with, like if you love, like I love fashion, I really do. But obviously in what I'm working in now, which I really do love product liability defense, I find that just learning on the side a little bit and just meeting that one person has kind of just opened the door a little bit. So I just say, just take a look at everything.
So I'd like to thank Christine and the Paralegal Student Association for sponsoring this event. And I would like to thank our panelists, Erica and Jeff, for taking time out of their day to join us and give us valuable advice. And thank all of you for attending.
Thank you. And you have to take a cookie.
Thank you. That was great.